Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really interesting puzzle in syntax. It's called pied piping.
Right.
Have you ever noticed how sometimes, say, with a word like whose, this whole chunk of a sentence just seems to get dragged to the front with it?
Yeah, it's a curious thing.
That's basically the mystery we're digging into today, using some linguistic insights.
And it's fascinating, really, how these little grammatical quirks, can reveal so much about how language is actually structured deep down.
So let's break it down. What exactly is pied piping?
Okay, well, basically, it's when a question word, a who word, like who, which, whose, what, when it moves to the start of a question.
It pulls something with.
Exactly. It pulls a larger phrase along for the ride. So think about asking, whom did you see the picture of?
Yeah,
You could ask that.
sure.
But you could also say, of whom did you see the picture? See how of came along with whom.
Ah, okay. The of got pied piped.
Precisely. That's pied piping in action.
So the big question is, why? Why does that happen?
Well, one strong theory is that it's about keeping phrases intact, maintaining their integrity.
Keeping related words together.
Yeah. In that example of whom feels like a natural unit, a prepositional phrase. Pulling just herm out can feel, well, a bit less neat grammatically, at least in some languages or contexts.
Right, and that leads to another point, doesn't it? It's not the same everywhere.
Not at all. This is where it gets really interesting cross-linguistically. Some languages pied pipe much more readily or in different situations than English does.
So English might give you a choice, but another language might demand you pied pipe?
It can happen, yeah.
Yeah.
It really shows the different strategies languages use for forming questions or relative clauses.
And does it affect meaning or emphasis?
It certainly can affect emphasis or focus. Think about whose book did you lose versus maybe something more complex like the owner of which book did you finally track down. It subtly shifts what you're highlighting.
Okay, but you can't just drag anything along, right? There must be rules.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's governed by syntactic constraints. You can't just grab half the verb phrase and pull it forward. There are definite structural rules defining what can and can't be pied piped.
Which tells us something about that underlying structure.
Definitely. And linguists often use minimal pairs to study this.
Right, sentences that are almost identical except for one feature.
Exactly. So you compare a sentence with pied piping to one without it, but it's otherwise the same, to really zero in on what effect the pied piping itself has.
It helps isolate the variable, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a neat tool.
And I imagine there isn't just one single theory explaining all this.
No. Different linguistic frameworks propose different mechanisms or reasons for why pied piping exists and works the way it does.
Yeah.
It's an active area of research.
Plus, it often feels like a choice, doesn't it? Like your to whom example earlier.
Yeah.
We can say, whom did you talk to?
Right. It's often optional in English. The choice might depend on formality. To whom sounds more formal or perhaps rhythm or, again, subtle emphasis.
What about in relative clauses? You know, the bits that describe nouns.
Oh, yeah. It's very common there, too. Think of phrases like the project on which she worked instead of the project which she worked on.
Right, on which the preposition gets pied piped.
Exactly. And things like this, the fact that whole phrases, not just single words, can be moved around as a unit.
It shows that sentences aren't just flat strings of words.
Precisely. It's strong evidence for what linguists call constituent structure. The idea that sentences have a hierarchical structure, like nested building blocks. Pied piping shows these blocks, these constituents, can move together.
So wrapping up, pied piping might look a bit, well, quirky on the surface.
Yeah, maybe a bit formal or unusual sometimes.
But it actually gives us this really valuable window into how languages build sentences, how they structure information, and how we use that structure for meaning.
It really does. And it leaves you with a bigger thought, doesn't it? If some languages do this readily and others barely at all, what does that difference tell us about, say, the fundamental architecture of human language itself?
That's a deep question.
And maybe you can think about other language puzzles you've noticed. Are there similar underlying principles, maybe about structure or movement at play there too? Something to ponder.